Hello again, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the info session on the Cannabis Business Empowerment Program, a partnership between the City of Boston and the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, also known as BECMA. I want to let you all know that today's session will be recorded and placed on our website. So please know that you have the option to turn off your camera if you do not wish to be seen, and you can utilize the chat feature if you have any questions during the session. The purpose of today's session is to learn about the Cannabis Business Empowerment Program, specifically the funding opportunities and business support offered through the program. During this info session, we will go over this program, what it offers, who's eligible, and how to apply. My name is Akila Armstrong, and I'm the Cannabis Equity Program Manager, and I'm within the Mayor's Office of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion, and I manage the day-to-day aspects of the Cannabis Equity Program, including certifying equity applicants, facilitating technical assistance, and developing funding opportunities. Joining me from the City of Boston, we have Shakia Scott, who is the Senior Cannabis Industry Manager, also within the Mayor's Office of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion. And she is going to speak to how we were able to have this partnership with BECMA and share history about past funding opportunities and support offered through the Cannabis Equity Program. Also with me, we have Mackinson Charles, aka Mac from BECMA, and Mac is behind the creation of the Cannabis Business Empowerment Program and will be overseeing the review of the application and funding distribution. While applying, if you have any questions about the program, specifically its application or criteria, please reach out to Mac. His information will be provided at the end of the session. However, please know that we are all here to answer your questions, and as we move through the different agenda items, there will be times for you to ask questions, but please feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat so you don't forget your questions. All right, so let's go over the agenda. As you can see on our screen, right now we're in the welcome, so thank you all for coming. And after the welcome, we're going to go over the Boston Cannabis Equity Program, specifically program overview, program offerings. You can ask any questions that you may have. And then after that, we're going to discuss the Cannabis Business Empowerment Program, program overview, understand program eligibility, the landing page of the program, a walkthrough of the application. We're going to have resources as well as a time for questions about the Cannabis Business Empowerment Program. And then at the end, we're going to do a wrap up and have our contact information. So, gonna get started. So, a little bit about the Boston Cannabis Equity Program. So, the Boston Cannabis Equity Program is an initiative by the City of Boston to assist those who have been most harmed by the war on drugs. This initiative is a result of an ordinance or local law establishing the Cannabis Equity Program and separately the cannabis licensing process. And through the Boston Cannabis Equity Program, we were able to designate qualified individuals as equity applicants and or businesses. And with this status, they receive benefits like access to our technical assisting and assistance providers and funding opportunities. The Cannabis Business Empowerment Program is one of those business support and funding opportunities. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our program offerings. As I stated, once certified, equity applicants gain access to our technical assistance providers, and they offer one-on-one project-based support. Typically, our offerings are legal services, accounting, finance, strategic marketing, general business consultants, cannabis compliance, architectural, and engineering services. And these projects can range from website development and creation to contract reviewing and negotiation, drafting of contracts, bookkeeping, space design, renovation assistance, licensing application support, and so much more. So basically, our technical assistance offerings are anything and everything you think you need for your business, as well as things that you're not even sure that you need yet. And that is one arm of our offerings. Another arm of our offerings is our access to funding. And as I stated, the Cannabis Business Empowerment Program is an avenue for funding and additional business support. And our funding opportunities have changed over the years, so I'm going to have Shakia just touch on how we got here.
Thank you, Akila. So I also included in the chat, if you don't have access to it already, a link to our equity programs page. And as Akila said, our access to funding, grant funding specifically, has changed. And so this year we're doing it in a brand new way. In the in the past iterations of the program, we've given out direct grants through the city, and we did 2 rounds of grants, giving out grants to about 51 businesses and qualified equity applicants. This year, we put out a grant of $350,000 to search for a nonprofit who could partner with us to put out a program, not just specific to grants, but a program that could provide access to resources, technical support, and other supports, including grant funding, as part of their program. And so through that process, we had a number of applicants for that grant. It was called the Cannabis Equity Grant, and BECMA was the chosen proposal of that grant. So they were awarded the $350,000 based on their program proposal, and that's what we're going to get into today, their Cannabis Business Empowerment Program, and what it includes and all that it includes, including grant funding. And I know a lot of us are here for the grant funding, but it goes above and beyond that. So wanted to make sure that you guys know that funding is a key part of it, but it's not the only avenue of it.
Okay. Thank you, Shakia. Thanks for that explanation. So if you have any further questions about the funding opportunities and how they've changed, feel free to reach out to Shakia or myself directly, and our contact information will be available after the session. And so now we're going to get into, or before that, in addition to contacting us directly, if you have any additional questions about just how grant funding has changed, we have some answers within our FAQ of the Cannabis Business Empowerment Program. You can review that for additional resources. So now we're going to go on to learning more about the Cannabis Business Empowerment Program itself. So we're going to have Mac from BECMA introduce himself and talk about the Cannabis Business Empowerment Program.
Thank you, Akila, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mackenson Charles. Most people call me Mac, and I serve as the Chief of Membership Programs at the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, or BECMA, which is a member-based nonprofit organization on a mission to close the racial wealth gap and promote prosperity, economic prosperity throughout the Commonwealth. We do that through a series of avenues, like our programs and services, in which we facilitate access to capital, technical assistance, AI, and digital tools to really help businesses in our network be more operationally sound and compliant. We also do a ton of policy and advocacy work, making sure that our legislators are keeping the interest of Black and Brown communities at the forefront. And then we also put on many convenings, large and small, really as an opportunity to engage those who care about our mission and promoting prosperity throughout the Commonwealth. And so that's a bit about BECMA. And I had the honor of designing the Cannabis Business Empowerment Program in partnership with the City of Boston. And so today I want to walk you through why this program exists, how it works, and most importantly, how it can support you as an equity applicant or business in the cannabis industry. Okay. So, just for a little bit of context, BECMA, as was mentioned, applied and was awarded the Cannabis Equity Grant because we saw the urgent need to close systemic gaps that have kept many entrepreneurs from fully participating in this industry. We have many cannabis businesses in our network. We spoke to them and got a better understanding of the challenges that they face. And we saw this opportunity to utilize this grant to plug some of those gaps and help those entrepreneurs and others come over those barriers. And so our goal is simple, to help Boston's cannabis equity business overcome barriers and access the resources they need to launch, sustain, and scale. This program is not about competition between applicants. Every eligible business will receive something. The application helps us understand your business needs so we can tailor the right level of support and ultimately ensure the eligibility for this program. So we'll dive into the fun part, the resource and fund distribution, and then I'll kick it over to Akila to share a bit more about the eligibility requirements. And so this program is structured in three tiers, based on where you are in your business journey. And so I'll break down that in more detail because this is where a lot of folks have questions. And so, tier one is where we provide foundational support. This is designed for people who are just getting started, maybe still forming their entity or trying to get the basics in place. In tier one, you can receive up to $3,000 in grant funding in addition to other resources. That may not sound like a lot, but at this stage, it's about covering those early barriers that can stall you. Things like getting your bookkeeping software set up or purchasing basic supplies you need to get off the ground. A good example may be if you're a new applicant who just secured a lease but haven't yet filed your LLC paperwork. This tier could give you some resources to get through that process, while also providing consulting with an accountant to get your books in order and some starter software subscriptions. In tier two, we're focused on capacity building. And so this is for applicants who have a solid plan and are preparing for licensure or early operations. And so here you can access up to $20,000 in grants plus services. Now, this tier goes deeper. You'll receive one-on-one legal and accounting support from approved vendors, um, and will help in set up full service bookkeeping and payroll systems. And so a good example at this tier would be if you're at the stage where you've had your community meeting with the Office of Neighborhood Services and you're preparing to open your doors in the next 12 months. This support may include having an attorney review your host community agreement, setting up payroll for your first hires, and working with a bookkeeper so you're compliant from day one. Then we have tier three, which is focused on growth and scaling. This is for licensed operating businesses that are ready to expand. And so here you can receive up to $40,000 in grant funding, along with advanced services like marketing support, operational efficiency consulting, and specialized legal and accounting expertise. And so, for example, if you're already running a retail location, but want to open a second location or expand into manufacturing. Tier 3 support can help fund professional marketing campaigns, upgrade your inventory systems, or bring you in an operations consultant to streamline your processes so you can scale more efficiently. And so those key ideas across all three tiers is really where the success comes in. And this application process not just helps us vet who is eligible for the program, but gives us some preliminary information on what type of right size support we can provide for you. And so I do want to stress again that everyone who is eligible will receive something. We designed the program in a way to where wherever you are on your journey, we should be able to provide some support to address a need or more. And so the tiers simply help us better organize that work. And that is how our funding will be conducted. But before we go into more details about the program, I'm going to kick it to Akila, and she'll expand a bit more on the eligibility requirements.
Perfect. Thank you, Mac. Before I get into eligibility, I just want to address one of the questions within the chat. We have a question that says, can these grants be used for real estate or for rent? Yes, that is the case. You can use these funds to use for real estate. We do have some restrictions that these funds can be used for. And my apologies. Oh, my apologies. You cannot use these funds for rent. So apologies for that. I misspoke. You cannot use these funds for rent, for leases and things like that, but you can check within our FAQ document to see some more of what these funds can be used for. And then now I'm going to get into a little bit of the eligibility, as Max said. So now for eligibility through the program. To be eligible to this, you must be a certified Boston Cannabis Equity applicant or business. Unfortunately, these funds are not available to pre-certified equity applicants at this time. And to be eligible as a certified cannabis equity applicant, you must first have an active application with the Boston Cannabis Board, also known as the BCB. And I want to note that this is not through the Cannabis Equity Program. The Boston Cannabis Board is completely separate and handles all licensing matters. Next, you'll need to have either a lease or a letter of intent for a space within the city of Boston. And this is required because it helps to verify that your business will operate within the city. And then next, you by yourself or along with another member of your business will need to own at least 51% of the business, signaling that the majority of the business is owned by equity applicants or one single applicant. And then after that, you must also satisfy at least 3 of our 7 qualifying criteria. And you can find the full list of our qualifying criteria on our website. And if you do have any questions about your individual equity status, please feel free to reach out to me directly and we can go over your equity status and to understand where you are within the process. And now I'm going to kick it back to Mac to continue to talk about the Cannabis Business Empowerment Program.
All right, thank you, Akila. So what we're gonna do now is I want to make sure you all are aware where to find more information about BECMA's Cannabis Business Empowerment Program. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's take a look at the landing page that outlines more details. And Shakia or Akila, if the link to this landing page is not in the chat, would you mind putting it in the chat? So you guys can see just basic information at the top of this page. And if you feel you got the gist of how this program operates, you can hit apply here right away, or click on this link to learn more via the FAQ. We do a quick blurb on who this program is designed to support, a bit more detail about what you will get, how the application process works. We have key dates, which we'll expand upon in a bit. And then also tell a friend to tell a friend, because we want to make sure that as many businesses who are eligible for this support are aware of this opportunity and position themselves to apply and hopefully take advantage of this opportunity. So that is our landing page. It may be helpful for us to actually walk through the application process. And if you all have questions as we're doing this, you can feel free to include them in the chat. But if you click on any of the apply here links, it will lead you directly to the application form, which again provides much detail, a brief overview of the program, again, who it's designed to support. The link to the FAQ is also embedded here as well. We do get into a bit more details, as I mentioned earlier, about the different tiers and the type of support afforded within those different tiers, key dates, and then the ready to apply, which then leads to what I believe should take anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes to complete. Again, for those who may be under the impression that this application is your opportunity to really sell us not only on why you're eligible for this program, but to also sell us on why you are worthy of 40K, $1,000 support. It's not necessarily the intention of this application. It really is designed to assess your eligibility and get some preliminary information about why you believe this program will be of value to you. For those who then are deemed eligible and accepted into the program, there's going to be additional assessments of your business to really understand and peel back the layers on where the gaps are, what your goals are, and how the resources within this program can support you. And so don't feel that you need to do an entire biography about you and your business and why it is worthy of the maximum support that it is offered here. Okay, so let's go through this application process. We'll start off with some basic information, your name and email address. This should be your primary contact for your business. Make sure it's an email you check regularly. This is how we'll send all notifications to you. We then want you to indicate your equity status. And so you'll be asked, are you a certified cannabis equity applicant or an existing equity cannabis business in Boston? Now you must select yes to qualify. If you're not yet certified, but in process, you'll need to complete that certification process before October 6th deadline in order to be eligible for this program. We'll then want to understand your legal business name and EIN/tax ID. You can enter your business's official name and federal tax ID. If you don't yet have an EIN, you can apply for one online with the IRS. It's free and it's quick. We then want to know more information about the owner and principal. So that's you. Ultimately, whoever holds majority ownership in the business is the information that you would plug in there. Next, you'll see some optional demographic questions. These include race, ethnicity, gender, veteran status, disability, LGBTQ+, and so forth. These are for reporting purposes only, and are not used for eligibility decisions. Then you'll be asked for your business address. Please make sure this matches your business registration documents, as we'll be cross-checking both. Then we'll get into business information. So we do want to understand the mission or the vision of your business. This is your chance to tell us your why. One or two sentences should be enough. For example, our mission is to create safe, community-centered cannabis retails, businesses that generate jobs for Boston residents. A brief description of current operations. So here you'll explain what you're doing now, if you're pre-licensed, describe your stage and plans. If you're operating, you can describe the size of your business, how long you've been in business, and what you sell. Next, we'll then want to understand the type of cannabis business activity. And so you'll see a checklist with options like retailer, manufacturer, research facility, and others. Select all that apply to your current or planned operations. And then lastly, within this section, we want to know the number of employees. And so enter your current number of employees, both full-time and part-time staff. And if you're pre-revenue, just put 0 for now. That's fine. Next, we'll then go into business goals and challenges. And so we ultimately want to know the goals that you have over the next 12 months. Be specific. So, for example, you want to secure your final licensure, open a retail store, or hire 5 employees. We'll then want to know the stage of your business. And so choose a stage that best describes where you are. You're in the idea stage or pre-license stage, early operations, or you're an operating business. We want to know the top 3 challenges you'll have. And so you'll check a box like access to capital, legal assistance, compliance, marketing, or accounting. This is one of the important questions because it helps us decide how to tailor support for you. We then want to know the type of support you're seeking. And so you can choose what you want most, whether that be grant funding, digital tools, professional services, or maybe supplier opportunities. We'll then ask you to upload some documents if you have them. So like your business license/registration, you can upload it if available. If you don't have one yet, that's okay. Just leave it blank. What is required is a signed W-9. And so you can download the W-9 form directly within this application, um, fill it out, and then upload it within this application for us to review. And lastly, we'll need final certification. And so at the very end, you'll check a box certifying that the information is accurate and that you agree to participate in follow-up evaluation activities. And that's it. Once you hit submit, we will retrieve and then ultimately review your submission, and then we will follow through with the subsequent steps in the review and process timeline. Kayla, did you want me to dive into the timeline, or did you want to interject and expand on anything?
You could touch on the timeline, and I'll come back and talk about tiers 2 and 3.
Excellent. Okay, so just so you all are aware, our application review process and timeline, step one is going to be an eligibility check. And so right after October 6th, which is when we want all applications to be submitted, we'll confirm that your business meets the city's equity certification requirements, and then notifications will go out to everyone on October 13th. Step two is where we'll do an in-depth assessment. Um, Essentially, we will, for all of those who have been deemed eligible and a good fit for this program, we'll do an in-depth assessment that really gets into a firm understanding on where you are in your journey and what support will be best for you. At that point in time, we'll be able to determine which tier you'll fall into and start to put together a support package, in which that support package will be announced to you on November 7th. And then step three, all the awards will be announced, and that will be on November 10th. So you'll get the final notification of your award and support package. And so again, I do want to emphasize that if you are eligible, you'll receive some support. You're not competing against one another. The application is simple, and it tells us if you're eligible and gives us some basic information on what tier you may fall into. We'll then notify you of your eligibility status. We'll take about a month to do a thorough and deeper dive into your business and where you want to go. We'll develop that support service package. And then between the months of November to February is where we'll start to facilitate the resources, whether that be a grant, technical assistance, digital tools, or supplier development services. And that is our timeline.
Perfect. And so I'm just going to go back a little bit. So you heard Mac touch on tiers 2 and 3 of funding, and he said that an ISD refusal letter and a community meeting is needed before that time. And that is correct. The reason that those are needed to access higher funding is because these are all aspects of the BCB's licensing process. And it also indicates that people are later within their licensing process and the scheme of their business. So the reason that those are hired and designed for businesses who are further along in their process is just because the higher funding amounts are aimed at businesses to get to the next step and to scale their businesses. So they're not necessarily for those who are in the early stages of business formation. And again, we just want to ensure that the funding is going to businesses that are more likely to remain within the city of Boston. And once you have your ISD refusal letter and have held your community meeting, that is more likely to be the case. And then I just want to touch on some questions that were asked within the chat. So we did have a question about whether these items will be given in a slide or given to you after this meeting. We do plan to send out a recap of this meeting as well as the recording of this video session, just so you have information and resources to move forward with the application process. So after this meeting, you will have a list of all the funding that is offered, tiers 1, 2, and 3, and a breakdown of each, as well as links to the application page, the landing page that Mac shared with us, and the FAQ that was shared in the chat as well. If you do have any specific questions, you can feel free to reach out to us, and then we will help you along with the application process. And then I'm going to have Shakia touch on some of the questions that were also asked in the chat and a recap of why rent isn't one of the uses that we can use for funding.
Thank you, Akila. So I also wanted to reiterate that on our webpage, which we've also shared in the chat, and again on BECMA's landing page, all of the information that we're going over lives on both of those. And then again, Akila will follow up with all of the resources that we talked about today and the information about the tiers and the funding opportunities in an email, as well as this video. And this video will also live on the Equity Program webpage. And so there were a number of questions in the chat, and I want to make sure that we're addressing them. Ruben, I'm going to go back to your question of can this be used for real estate and or rent? So it can be used to acquire your real estate, but then it cannot be used for rent. And then Armani, I seen your follow-up question of why can it not be used for rent? So this is a city, it's in our city charter that basically doesn't allow for us to use city resources for rent. And that's just a legal ramification that has been passed down to us from our legal department. And so there's that we've been trying to find, not ways around it, but ways that we can alleviate that because we know that that's one of the biggest financial burdens. But unfortunately, for this grant process and previous iterations of it, we have not been able to find a real solution, for rent relief in this process. So unfortunately, it's still one of those restricted items. There are some others. Is with this grant, it's also restricted for use of licensing and licensing fees, as well as any, cannabis products. So you can't buy your cannabis product. In the FAQ, this is question number 13. So there's more information there around it. And then Janice, you had several questions, and thank you for these. I think these are clarifying questions that are super helpful. And then, you did identify some resources. We also offer those resources from the city. So one of your specific questions is, what if we submitted an application to CCC or have RFIs? Can we apply as licensed? And I think what we're getting to here is that we're just talking about eligibility through the city's process. And so you don't have to be licensed through the CCC. And so we're just making sure that you have an ISD, refusal letter, and have had your community outreach. You don't necessarily have to have had your license. There are some businesses already in this process that are licensed. And so we want to make sure that those businesses know that they also qualify for this. So when we're mentioning that you must be licensed, you don't necessarily have to have a license, but those businesses that do have their licenses are also eligible. Janice, you also said, but you need a refusal letter and to be a BCB applicant. So that requires a location, a lease, and architectural drawings. Absolutely, yes. So to get an ISD refusal letter, you do need architectural drawings. To have a to have your BCB application, and to have a lease or letter of intent. We do offer, and this goes into your next question that you also asked, Janice. We do offer technical assistance for those who are in the starting process, which is why it's not included in BECMA's program. And so those who are pre-certified, they have access to our technical assistance that gets them to the place where they have a lease or a letter of intent, they have an application with the BCB, and they have access to all resources that will need that they will need to get them there, right? If they need an architect to provide them architectural drawings, we have an architect on hand that can do that for them, and the city covers those costs. And so you did mention don't pay 3K for an architect, and I will also vouch for that. If you are pre-certified or can be certified for this program, I would absolutely vouch that you reach out to us for assistance with that, because you may be eligible to get those costs covered under this city's program. There were a few here, Derek. What if we were turned down for retail, but now want to do delivery? Can we use our turn down and explain that we are pivoting? Absolutely, as long as you maintain an active application with the BCB, have a lease or letter of intent, and for the different tiers, as Akila explained, for tier 2 and tier 3, if you're going to apply for those, have had your ISD refusal letter and or a community outreach meeting, right? And you can definitely explain like, hey, we have all these things for this business. We were applying for this and we're pivoting to this. Um, there are acquire real estate meaning purchase. I'm not sure what your question there means, Janice, but I would say yes. If you are acquiring the real estate, that would mean you were purchasing either the land or the business itself. Some people have gone that route, or building itself. Some people have gone that route. I know that's a heavy financial lift, but yes. And then utilities. Utilities. Let me make sure, Armani. I don't see any restrictions on utilities, just rent and mortgages. But if you would like, we could double check, but we haven't had any restrictions on utilities. Um, and then we have a question from Denise. Is the distribution of funds going to be equal across types of licenses? I'll let Matt get to that. I would think we will also just open it up for FAQ. Akiela, let me know how you would like to orchestrate that, but I wanted to make sure that I answered those questions in relation to funding.
We can open it up for questions. Mac, if you want to touch on that question of how funds will be distributed over the different types of licenses.
Yeah, so that is the goal. We are very early in our application fielding process. The application's been open for about a week now, and so it will be contingent on the different types of licenses that we see in terms of applicants in order to ensure that it's equitable across all different types of licenses. But yes, that is the intent.
And then other questions we are seeing, let's see, would condo fees count? So we'd need to double check on that, but from my understanding, you're not able to pay for rent and mortgages. So my assumption would be condo fees go into that type of rent and mortgage. So I do not believe you'll be able to use your funding for that, but I can double check and get back to you on that. And then contractors, you can use the funding for contractors such as HVAC. That is correct.
Can I add there, Akila, and as well as Max? So through BECMA's program, they will also be partnering with us to offer technical assistance, and they will also be offering their own technical assistance above and beyond what we offer. But if you are right in need of a contractor, we do have available funds to provide you with certain aspects. So if you need an HVAC person, we could definitely look for that for you, or provide connections for you and see if that's covered. And Armani, I'm kind of speaking directly to you because you asked this question, and I know you're an equity applicant, so you do have access to that as well. But BECMA may also have different types of access to technical assistance above and beyond what the city offers, and that's why we're thankful to have been able to partner with them.
Do you have any other questions? Do you have to pay membership fees? Can you expand on that? Is that in terms of the funding?
No, you don't have to be a formal member of BECMA. Although we would love for you to be a member of BECMA, but it is not a requirement as part of this program. But I'm convinced that once you experience our program, you'll want to be a member without me twisting your arm. But it's not.
Any other questions? If not, I'm going to get into some resources that we are providing. Okay. So, in addition to the three of us here as resources, you'll also have access to our FAQ link that is within the chat, but will also be emailed after this meeting. You have the City of Boston's Cannabis Equity Program webpage, which has a list of our eligibility on that page. You have access to BECMA's Cannabis Business Empowerment Program landing page, as well as the link to the application. But I will be, after this meeting and after the recording is finished, we will be sending out this recording to you all with contact information for myself, Mac, and Shakia, and all the links that I just talked about, the FAQ, the Boston Cannabis Equity Program webpage, the Cannabis Business Empowerment Program page, and the application. So you'll have all of that in one email so you can hopefully go through and apply for the program. And that will come either later today or potentially sometime tomorrow. It just depends on when this recording finishes rendering. Um, but if we have any other questions, please feel free to add them in the chat, or I had someone raise their hand. Oh, but we did have a question for you, Mac. What are the
I have a
requirements to
question. Yeah,
become a
I raised my hand. I just didn't have the speed to type it with my fingers. If we, for example, say owe a contractor and we pay it out of pocket, can we reimburse ourselves?
repeat the question? Sorry.
Sorry if my audio is bad. If we were to pay a contractor
Mm.
for an outstanding invoice, say $10,000 or $5,000, can we then get repaid if, say, you're at level 3 and you qualify? Can you repay yourself for that amount if you can show like a receipt? Or does it have to be outstanding expenses? Just because I'm thinking about the timing of it, and it would be nice to, get it sooner than later. Doesn't seem that's going to happen. So just thinking about timing
I'll let
of
Beck,
said expense.
I'll let Armani, I'll let Mac jump in here after, but typically we've did it in terms of outstanding amounts. Beckma, what do you think of that?
Amani, we would have to do after our assessment if we determine that that is the greatest need and ultimately better position you for future success, then it's something that we certainly consider. Um, so it's not out of bounds, particularly if there's no legality issues within it. I'm open to definitely exploring that and utilizing that as a resource for you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And we did have another question for you, Mac. What are the requirements to become a member of BECMA?
Registered state of Massachusetts. That's it.
Simple, easy.
Mhm.
I'm just going to put our contact information on the screen. One second.
And this is all of our emails. But again, this will be reiterated in the email to everyone on this call. But feel free to jot down our email information and feel free to reach out to us. I'm going to keep it up for a little bit and stay on for a little bit of time, but that brings us to the end of our presentation. Anybody have any additional questions?
I'm seeing something in the chat, but I can't see what it is because I'm sharing my screen.
Just asking if our contacts will be shared via email. Yes, it will be at the end of this, either later today or sometime tomorrow. But that is it. If there aren't any other questions, that brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you all for joining us today. Good luck with applying. I hope you all do apply and looking forward to see what potential funding everyone gets. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Yeah.